It happened last Saturday when I decided to go for a walk in the woods behind the library. I'd been at home for weeks by then, avoiding being near people to minimize the risk of getting sick. It was raining that day and the trails were deserted. Even the mosquitoes had largely disappeared. If I listened closely, I could still hear the sounds of traffic over the birdsong and the gentle patter of water hitting leaves. The further in I went, the easier it was to ignore. Low-hanging branches and creeping vines completed the illusion, and barring the occasional bridge, it was easy to pretend that I was in the middle of nowhere. The woods themselves were flooded. Ever-growing puddles of water took over the forest floor, covering what would otherwise have been a beautiful carpet of moss and leaves and branches. For a moment I imagined that something lurked beneath the surface, just waiting for someone to step off the path so it could drag them under and into another world. I watched it for a while, but didn't see anything suspicious under the ripples. The air was cleaner here, and the relative quiet was refreshing. I wandered aimlessly for a while, admiring the scenery and not thinking about anything in particular. It was only because I stopped to look at an interesting tree stump that I heard it. A concentrated burst of rain that lasted a second and then stopped. Then another. It was barely audible over the normal sounds of the forest, and if I'd been walking, my footsteps would have drowned it out entirely. But it was there, and I couldn't be sure, but it seemed to be getting closer. I looked down the path in the direction of the noise, but didn't see anything. The noise stopped. It hit me then that I hadn't heard a car in hours. Had I been here hours already? I pulled my phone out, but it was dead. I had charged it that morning. I couldn't be sure how long I'd been out, but it was probably time to head back. It was starting to rain harder now, and I thought I heard thunder in the distance. As I pulled my hood up against the rain, I realized with a start that I had no idea where the exit was. In fact, although I'd been walking for a while and the woods were not that big, I hadn't come across a single path leading out. Then I heard it again. I decided that the exit was probably in the opposite direction of the weird noises. I hoped so anyway. I tried not to think about how the concentrated bursts of rain sounded a bit like footsteps. I tried not to think about how it seemed to be following me. I definitely did not think about how it seemed to be getting louder. After what had to be at least an hour, I was seriously considering stepping off the path. The woods were barely 2 square kilometers, and unless I was going in circles, I should have come across multiple exits by now. If I left the path and walked in a straight line, it shouldn't take more than 15 minutes before I saw buildings. The wood chips on the path kept it relatively dry, though, and I was loath to risk slipping in the mud and injuring myself. I nervously tried to remember if I'd told anyone where I was going. I hadn't. Something about the way the trees swayed in the wind convinced me to try the path again. They were better maintained and I was less likely to be hit by falling branches on them. Besides, the odd rain sounds were far closer now, and if I had to make a break for it, I had a better chance on drier land. I looked back towards the noises, but they didn't stop this time, getting progressively louder as I waited. I still couldn't see anything. I turned the other way and stuck out my right arm, resolving to only stay on the right side of the path. It would take longer, and would mean doubling back sometimes, but it guaranteed that I wouldn't walk in circles. My shoes were soaked by this point, and I walked faster, dreaming of dry clothes and hot chocolate. The city noises that seemed unbearable the day before were suddenly all I wanted to hear. Behind me, the sound of rain sped up as I walked. I glanced back and thought I saw a shadow flicker behind the trees, but a moment later it was gone, replaced by the unnerving sound of branches creaking in the wind. 20 minutes later found me on a familiar path. An odd tree stood to my right, and I got the feeling I'd seen it a long time ago. After another bend, I came across a small clearing that I recognized as being near the entrance. I was almost out. I would have been relieved were it not for the sudden sound of creaking wood next to my head. Branches that seemed beautiful only that morning grabbed at my sleeves as I ran, threatening to turn me into a part of the forest. The sound of rain was deafening. I don't know how long I ran before I found the exit, but by the time I stopped halfway into the parking lot, I was shaking from cold and exhaustion. All at once my phone lit up, hundreds of missed messages screaming for attention. I pulled it out, staring numbly at the date on the lock screen, and looked back at the woods to see if anything had followed me out. It was winter. I still don't know what happened that day. Whether my walk lasted hours or months, I'll never be sure. I haven't been back to those woods. I go to a different library now. One downtown, surrounded by cars and concrete and people. And when it rains, I stay home.